And that's it? No hidden costs? No trying to get me to pay for the photo after the ride? Come on, there's gotta be something. No one gives anything away for free, least of all at a carnival. The eccentrically dressed man smiles at him.
Too right you are, but I give you my word you will face no hidden charges, false payments, or deceptive invoices here. Just fill out the form and walk on inside.
The gentleman stands, draped head to toe in some sort of thick stocking. There are horizontal stripes of white and black that extend from end to end, up from his feet, to his waist, to his neck, then down to his arms, to two leather-gloved hands. It even covers his face. The man wears fancy dress shoes suitable for a ball, as well as a dark, gothic, Victorian waistcoat that's covered in belts and laced up like a corset. Above it all, a plain, dusty top hat, the cliché mark of a travelling swindler. The winding lines make it hard to look at the man's face, so Jason averts his eyes to the form that's been presented before him. A plain fare, largely just a waiver for one's health. Can't have some old coach's heart exploding when a ghoul jumps around the corner, Jason thinks to himself. He fills in the details about having no relevant health issues. Blood red ink flowing ominously from the provided pen. He chuckles. He pauses for a moment when he gets to the section covering phobias. The man, apparently vigilant behind the zebra-patterned covering, speaks.
Do be honest on the paper, lest you are left unable to enjoy the full experience,
he says, his voice silky and exotic. After some deliberation, Jason nods. He ticks the boxes for snakes, heights, clowns, and regrets. As he signs the last letter of his signature, the iron gate beside him swings open with a rusty squeal and a flash of lightning. All just effects, of course. At his back, the man speaks.
We can only go forwards. We can never go back,
he says in a somber tone. Jason walks up the cobbled path, up some sufficiently creaky stairs, and into the haunted house. It seems relatively mundane, despite the unusual host. Hastily strewn cobwebs, and cauldrons of slime that bubble with dry ice. He pauses at a funhouse mirror, distorting his usually scrawny body into a top-heavy, cartoonish strongman. He is dark-skinned and relatively tall, but there is little to note about his appearance beyond that. No one would ever accuse the mid-20s man of being stylish. Buzz-cut hair and clothes that were far too formal for a night out with college friends. Jason poses in the mirror and laughs. A memory plays, his younger sister hanging off his flexing arm. His mood quickly turns sour and he walks on. Jason enters through a door, hardly paying attention, before immediately grabbing the guardrail of a glass-floored bridge that's barely more than a tightrope. It's fixed end to end between two red doors, and is sturdy, despite the strong wind. The bridge seems to sit several miles above a busy cityscape. The door behind him shuts with a soft click. Jason panics. He knows it has to be some sort of trick or illusion, but those are thoughts of a rational mind, thoughts that, right now, are being firmly pressed into nothingness by the overwhelming terror that is his crippling vertigo. "Oh, fuck!" is all he manages before turning to bang on the door behind him.
We can only go forwards. We can never go back,
comes the same low voice from before, all around him now, even through the wind. "Fuck that! Open the door! Fuck, turn it off!" Jason stands firm, one hand on the door, the other on the rail, clutching both like a child with a blanket. He closes his eyes tight, waiting for it to be over. A good few minutes pass, testament to just how deep his fear runs. Jason pleads and begs and berates. He grows close to tears, but eventually realizes that the voice is telling the truth. There is only one way out of this. He releases the door handle and takes a timid step towards the other end of the bridge. "It's not real, it's not real," he says to himself over and over, his chant made less believable by the fact he refuses to look down. It's going well. Another shaky step takes him over the halfway point. Then he hears something that makes him wince. Crack! A slow turn around, as though seeing it will make it true. Crack! Jason runs, Immediately he stumbles, the glass underfoot proving to be poor footing for such a task. He crawls, eyes wide, and gets some solid distance before registering just how absurd his current tactic is. He manages to get back on his feet, sprinting once more, but with more care this time around. Crack, crick, crack, comes the floor behind him, white lines nipping at his heels like spreading webs. He gets to the door and works at the handle, desperately trying to push it. Crack! He bangs on it and yells for aid. Crack, chip! He pulls away and slams his weight against it. The sound of shattering and a whistle of glass as shards fall away. He pulls back once more, ready to ram. The door moves inwards off the latch. He wants to scream at himself, but there's no time. He pulls on the handle and it opens easily, allowing him to dive through just in time to see the pane he was standing on fall far away. The door closes behind him. Jason is in a dark room. There is illumination from somewhere, but he can see no light source. It's barely potent enough to see his hand before his face. He breathes heavy from his ordeal, but continues his march onwards, wishing to be anywhere else. High-pitched laughter bounces around the void. Jason does not ask after it. He does not grow worried or scared. He just grows cold. He knows that laugh. Ahead of him, as though illuminated by a spotlight, a bracelet. It is a silly little thing, bright colours and beads. He reaches down to pick it up. The accessory is wet, and the moment Jason touches it, another memory flashes before his eyes. He is 14. He places trinkets upon the bright purple string before wrapping it around his sister's tiny wrist and tying it closed. She giggles and gives him the brightest smile. It warms him even now, even here. He proffers his own wrist to her with a grin, but realizes that he is already wearing his bracelet, that this happened long ago, that there is nothing before him save the dark. He walks on. The next door is multicoloured with a bright red doorknob. Jason gulps and grips it. The words from earlier echo in his mind.
We can only go forwards. We can never go back.
He opens the door and, for a minute, thinks he has found freedom. Carnival attractions like the ones he left behind. But no. Clearly defined walls surround him as he moves through flashing lights and the oppressive scent of candy floss. The machines whir and buzz, though there is no one here to play them. Lit signs and recorded slogans beg he try their games. Jason only continues to make tentative step after tentative step, as though the dirt floor might collapse just like the bridge. He hears laughter, different from before. A false chortling, equal parts goofy and obnoxious. He swears, having seen this coming. You fuckers. A honk from behind and the shuffling of feet. He spins, only to hear bells sound to his right. He turns again, this way and that, catching glimpses of the room's inhabitants. Get the fuck away from me, he calls. He turns and starts to run, trying to find the exit door in this labyrinth of canopies, only to stumble as he turns a corner and sees one face to face. The clown looks normal, save for a few less than normal features. Its head tilts at an angle as though listening for something. Its mouth hangs open and seems to hold too many teeth, all perfectly square and a little over large, and its eyes, round, wide, and totally black. Jason looks into those oily depths, not daring to move. Then it charges him. Fucking fuck! He yells, turning tail to run in the opposite direction. The creatures begin to emerge from every which way, from behind supports, from under the games and stands. Jason manages to grab a particularly mean-looking metal rod as he flees. A clown blocks his path and smiles, bending and giving a wave as though to a child. The hollow growl and gnashing of teeth grow louder behind him. Jason brings the red metal pole across the monster's face. Teeth fly out, along with blood that is far too dark to be human. It staggers and then looks back, its unchanged smile now dripping black. He hits it again, and then again, before running past. They are everywhere. They block every path. They close in. They get closer and closer. He runs and finds his back towards a ball pit. Watcha, would ya? The The voice of his father. He turns and sees a face full of teeth. Jason brings up the pole and the pearly whites close around it, visibly denting the rod as he's knocked back, down into the ball pit. Then he's falling. He tries to hold his breath as he sinks through the multicoloured ocean. The balls grow finer and finer until he's not in a ball pit at all, but a pool. He kicks and tries to find up. He looks around and sees a light. He swims towards it, clothes heavy on his back. He cannot let himself breathe in. He needs to get there now. His body will not let him hold out any longer. He is so close.
We can only go forwards. We can never go back.
So very close now. He burns with the effort. His lungs, his eyes, his muscles. Breath. Jason takes in the sweet nectar of a warm summer's evening. Hungry lungfuls of life-giving air. He looks down, 20-year-old body illuminated by starlight. He is sitting against a brick wall, dry of the water but drenched in sweat and shivering despite the moderate temperature. There are used needles all around him. "I'm sorry," he says in a dry rasp. The boy feels himself lifted to his feet and forced to face his father. Jason's father was quite a man. Always so composed and cold to emotion. Always firm in his opinions and standings. Never wavering, never showing weakness or willingness to compromise. Now, he stands before his son, with eyes full of tears. The gruff man pulls his boy towards him. No more lectures about the family's honour or calls for Jason to pull himself together. Just an embrace between father and son. "Please," he whispers, "I can't lose you, not now. Come with me, for your sister, please," he begs. Jason simply sobs, nodding a snotty face against his father's warm shoulder. Jason opens his eyes. He's back in the dark room, though it seems slightly easier to see now. He rises, teeth gritted through pain and misery. "I do not fear that. I face that. I got through it," he growls. He stands, wobbles, falls to one knee, and then stands again. "Every day I get through it," he continues. Illuminated on the floor beside him, a needle left over from his memory of the alley. He looks at it for barely a second before exclaiming to the empty room, "Is that all you fucking got?" He stomps on it. The second the glass cracks, the light disappears, and in the same moment reignites further on. It reveals a child, young, no older than 8, fairer skinned than his own, just as he remembered her, down to the bright, purple band on her wrist. She looks up at him with a smile, wearing a one-piece swimsuit and appearing to have just come out of the water. Jason walks, each step a great effort. He can barely see her through the tears in his eyes. He falls to his knees in front of her, holding her face in his hands. She simply smiles. He pulls her in and lets out heaving breaths. She feels warm despite the wet. He holds her head close to his chest. He has changed so much, but she is exactly the same. He weeps. "Dad told me to watch you. I'm sorry, Amy, it's all my fault." He lets out a racking breath that shakes them both. "I should have been watching you. You never got to grow up. I killed you. I'm so sorry." Jason feels a small, soft hand on his face. His head is gently pushed upwards, towards his lost sister. Amy moves her hand to lift his arm, and he lets her. Then, she undoes the band on her wrist and slides it onto his, right beside the one she made, all those years ago. She ties it off and looks up at him with that same bright smile. He smiles back. Amy reaches around his neck to give him one last hug, and then she walks away. Jason stands. He reaches out, but she's already too far. He breaks into a run to follow, but for each gaping stride he makes, she seems only to disappear further away. Eventually he stills, seeing her in the distance. She turns then, and gives a wave, before being consumed by light. The entire room goes from pitch black to blindingly bright. Jason stands there. The room is still a void, but it no longer feels empty. He turns and sees the door. bright purple like the bands on his wrist. He walks up, sighs, and leaves. It closes behind him and he is met by the masked man, zebra-striped stockings still covering his face. They simply look at one another, Jason waiting for some grand speech. The man throws something at him, a snake. Jason flails and yelps, adrenaline hitting. The snake falls to the floor, apparently made of rubber. He can tell the man is smiling under the fabric. Jason looks at him, face leveled.
"We can never go back,"
says the mysterious gentleman. Jason smiles. "We can only go forward."